Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today guys, we're going to be diving into the world of Vechain to take a look at the latest price action of VET. As we get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. And if you happen to be new to the channel, why not subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here. Right, with that said, done out of the way, let's dive into this brief technical analysis on Vechain. So we're going to start things off guys with this weekly chart, and we can just going to highlight, what's going on here as the bigger picture, making sure that our structure is still intact. Now, there are these Elliott theory 5 impulse waves to the upside. Now, with this, everything really started out back in March of 2020. First wave here peaked out in August of 2020. Wave 2 towards the end of the year, around November time, kind of bottomed out there before we went nice and strong into wave 3 for the new year. Here we peaked out at about April time before we saw the correction wave 4. And again, this went down low very, very quickly about 17th of May. But then we just traded sideways a bit for that recovery to come in. Here we can actually see we've started this 5th wave to the upside, but we still haven't taken over some of those key technical areas yet for Vechain. There are, of course, these corrections that we can see in the middle here. These are not uncommon. They do happen even on the direction to the upside, as you can see, as the third wave had quite a few of these before actually going into a fourth wave. So although this is not unnatural, it can be frustrating. Vechain actually dropped 36% within 1 week, but it has recovered since then, and it has worked its way back up and is just trading sideways a little bit. So we are gearing up for a pretty big move with Vechain, and it is only really around the corner. I'm going to get into that in the smaller time frames in a moment. Overall, from March 2020 through to April of 2021, Vechain went up 18,295%, which is a very significant amount. We take a look at Bitcoin, for example, it only went up 1,600%. Okay, so we know that Vechain has performed much better than some of those macro cap coins, such as Bitcoin. And this is really makes your money work harder when it's all about the percentage yield that you get rather than the dollar value. Obviously, moving something from less than a cent up to what was the high on this one at the moment? It was 27.9. Okay, so significantly higher value right now. Obviously, taking Bitcoin from, let's say, 7K up to 65K is great, but when you take it from less than a cent up to 27.9, you get a lot more percentage yield and you make your money work much harder for you. After we saw that 18,000%, we did go into a natural correction. This was the 4th wave correction, and because wave 2 was quite flat, wave 4 here was very, very sharp. These two waves will always be opposite to each other. That's one of the theories and one of the rules behind this impulse wave to the upside. Overall, the other rule that we have to bear in mind is wave 4 should never cross wave 1. So we knew there was a psychological or theoretical low of 2.3 that we fortunately never actually saw, which was really good. Here we can obviously see that we have a bit of an interesting zone at the bottom. This was an area that we were looking to accumulate on during the lows of our 4th wave. Okay, so this was an area that we thought, if we're going to wick into it, that's where we want to be buying significant portions. Unfortunately for Chris, his bags were pretty much packed. Mine are now packed, courtesy of this area here. But again, there are obviously opportunities to dollar cost average better positions if we wanted to. And again, I'll get into that on the hourly because I do think there is something there as well. Here we can see that there is another 785% to take us up to about $1. That there is what the Fibonacci retracement extension 4.236 is indicating to us. And I'll get into that on the next level down. Overall, we can see that the stochastic RSI was oversold at the bottom of the bull run. We went into overbought by the time we peaked wave 1. Oversold again by the bottom of wave 2, overbought with a little bit of volatility on our 3rd wave to the upside here, courtesy of Bitcoin manipulation. And then obviously back down to the oversold area during the lows of wave 4. And now we're looking to head back up into the overbought area for wave 5, which if I can draw an arrow would be fantastic. So overall, everything's looking pretty good. Loads of room to track onto the upside here. And we had that slight pullback. Again, this isn't too uncommon. And again, we can get this back up here in no time at all. And the weekly, obviously, it takes 7 days to see one of these candles. So the movements are very, very slow from a stochastic point of view on a weekly. Okay, let's jump down into our daily. This is where we can obviously talk about what's going on with that Fibonacci. Okay, so let me just bring this back down. So we have the Fibonacci retracement tool running from the high of wave 3 and the low of wave 4, which is actually over there here. And this is actually then indicating our price expectations for this fifth wave, the next leg to this bull run, and where we think things are likely to end for Vechain. So obviously, taking the current performance into consideration, this actually shows us with that 4.236 a full extension of $1.01. Okay, so that basically is that 785%. Obviously, on that journey, there are several milestones. We do have the 618 or the 1.618. This comes in at 42 cents. We have the 64.9 cent, the 87.7 cent, and then of course the dollar level at the top there. So overall, these are the levels that we like to pay attention to when it comes to Vechain and the price expectations that we are looking forward to seeing. Overall, and the bull run is yet to really take this to that next level for Vechain, as we need to get above this yellow box area here. This would be the 786 area that we want to see that weekly closed candle on. Big bull signal that will take this to the next level. Ultimately, things are getting really nice and tight down here that we're ready to start to see some good moves. We can see that we are well oversold on this daily stochastic RSI, currently at 5.6, so loads of room to grow to the upside. Overall, the daily here is looking pretty good. If we actually just shoot on down here, we can talk about what's going on most recently. So here we can obviously see these daily candles, and we're getting a good motion to the upside, and then obviously Bitcoin decided to pull us to the downside. This here is then or picked up my interest with a potential buy zone. This particular area is something that I thought we were going to wick into maybe once or twice and more. Now, obviously from there, this area was quite short-lived, but instead there was another area that started to represent itself quite frequently. So there was a 36% drop from this high here down to this low, and then since then we've actually started to see a bit of recovery. And as we can see, if we actually pulled this up, we are tracking now only 26% from our high there to where our current position is. So overall, we are still got quite a bit of work to go, but progress is being made. Now, obviously, when we talk about what's going on here, we're really best to take a look at what goes on with the the hourly chart, okay? Because the daily is great, but it doesn't quite give you the granular detail. But as you can see briefly here, if I expand this up a little bit, we've been wicking into this area just a little bit. And this is an interesting tell because we haven't closed inside this box, right? So this seems to be an area where I like to be buying up under this opportunity. So although my bags are packed, this is an opportunity I like to point out, as I do like to make some additional purchases every now and again for trading purposes. So right now, this seems like an interesting zone to me. So when we actually jump down into our hourly chart and we actually start reviewing what is going on, well, this is where things get a little bit more interesting, right? So this is the most volatile on the hourly, right? So this is where we see a lot of that volatility. But you see there is a downward trend, and there was a downward trend here, and we're upward trend as well. And what we were talking about a little while ago was how we're getting wedged into a triangular wedge just here, right? Between our support levels over here and of course our downward trend. We saw that break to the upside. We came back down to our support, but then we were unable to keep hold of our upward trend line. This is very unfortunate because the trend line is something that we've been tracking for quite some time. Obviously, since breaking that, we actually found support back down on the previous resistance trend that was down on a downward trend, right? So ultimately we bounced from this area here, pushing back up. This time, rather than this being a support line, it is now a resistance line, and we're finding support just on top of this yellow box area. Again, an area that we were on previously. The problem with Vechain is there's quite a bit of fear in the space on VET right now. So ultimately, there isn't a lot of kind of sentiment to be pushing the price up. Instead, the price has been dropping down, as you can see. Overall, right now, that sentiment is the thing that's worrying a lot of people. And I think once Bitcoin actually starts to get its reversal and a bit more confidence behind it, I think Vechain will also get its confidence back as well. So right now, we are obviously looking up at this overbought area on the stochastic without doing any real good price movement. My expectations are that we are going to be dropping into our yellow box accumulation box just down here, where we can buy up some VET at a discounted rate. Because as I said, there's quite a bit of fear in the market for Vechain. So my expectations are that we will actually probably drop down towards this level here, which will probably be about 10.8 cent, maybe 11 cent in this kind of middle of this yellow box. That's my expectations to pull down. Now, if we're lucky, we might just get a bounce from 11.2 and then we'll be straight out of here. Okay, so that's one scenario. Otherwise, potentially we'll just drop down a little bit lower before we actually move on out. I think we won't be in this box for very long though. This is an area that, as I said before, we haven't seen a closed candle in. So if we are going to drop in here today, then I expect us to come back out of this yellow box today as well. okay, as in line with our daily chart. Overall, we can see that we are down here only for a few hours, and it's very, very brief. So if we are to see a pullback like this one, I think there's going to be a lot of buying pressure to get us back out and get us above the support level of 11.2. Okay, so if we do pull back, those would be my expectations with our journey back to the upside. Overall, I am expecting this pullback to occur. I'm not going to call it a dump, but I do think there's an opportunity to buy up some fear, as the market is quite fearful for Vechain at the moment. And again, like I said, I think it'll be short-lived and will come out. Now, there is, of course, volatility on the smaller time frame. As always, if we do lose support, then we must obviously consider how low things are likely to go. Of course, I think after that, though, we are likely to get some good traction behind it. If we are ever in doubt, it's important that we zoom out, because this is where we see the big structure, and the structure is still intact, and we are still working our way towards that dollar level. Ultimately, it can be very frustrating to see this particular altcoin trade sideways the way that it is, but you got to bear in mind that a lot of this crypto space is more about the mind games and ultimately trying to make you feel like you need to sell. This is why Bitcoin has been hovering around these key areas without actually doing too much. It's trying to shake out retail investors out of the market. And again, all that money would be potentially flowing to the people who are controlling that. So there's institutions, etc. So ultimately right now, it's about making sure that we zoom out, paying attention to the bigger structure, and keeping our emotions in check. Everything is lining up nicely for a good move to the upside, and this is just a brief moment in time where there's volatility on those smaller time frames. Overall, I'm very confident in Vechain and everything that it is doing as part of its use case, but of course, in terms of VET and where VET is going in this year and this bull run. So overall, I'm very happy, and I do think that long term we are okay. So guys, I'm going to leave that there. If you did find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then do subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.